Kathy's group, who will represent us? Oh, good. You guys are already wheeling and dealing, so let's hear.
Okay. So we're going to, this is a humbling experience, actually. These are great presentations. So our group called itself Ubuntu, which means I am because we are, in Swahili, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually, I think it's Zulu.
In Zulu. Sorry. And our focus was thinking of a system that valued all life, not just human life, as its sort of core organizing principle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read our preamble. It's okay if you don't have it up on a slide, because we're not actually going to go through all our slides. And then some members of our team will add some comments just to sort of flesh out a little bit further. And instead of the Declaration of Independence, I think we borrowed more from your typical United Nations resolution in our preamble. So cognizant of the interdependence of all life, desiring to support its abundance and diversity, seeking more conscious self-organization of human activity, recognizing that the whole must support the well-being of each part, and each part must support the well-being of the whole, accepting human responsibility to maintain the integrity of the whole, and in humble recognition of human fallibility, we hereby declare that all ecosystems, species, and humans have political and moral standing in our governance. So to add some flesh to those bones, who would like to? Ken? Yeah,
so
come up.
I'll just talk briefly about a word that's not on that slide, which is equal. And we struggled with that because when we talk about ecosystems, species, and humans, we kind of wanted to say they're all important, they all need to survive and have certain rights and so on. But it's hard to call them equal because they're at different scales. Would you sacrifice a human for an ecosystem? Would you ever, would you let a species of bacteria die? So we basically just punted on that and said the relationship, the moral standing among those entities is to be defined. So.
The two words that I was asked to look at was have to do with, first, the nature of humankind. And we said that, picking up from E.O. Wilson, we are capable of biophilia. That's relating to all the rest of life, the biological universe. The example, the story I would tell is when I first bought my house on the Hudson River, I was outside waiting for somebody to come, and I noticed, or came back, and down at the back door there was a rose-breasted grosbeak that had flown into the windows and knocked itself out. So I gave it a couple of drops of water. And then I went for a walk, and when I came back, it was still kind of reeling around a bit drunkenly, and I tried to pick it up to give it some more water, and instead it skittered off into the underbrush. The next spring I was planting, or watering some plants that I'd put in, and a rose-breasted grosbeak, which does not normally live very long, and is not resident in that area, stopped on the wire and said hello. Was that biophilia, that I could relate to it and it could relate to me, or was it just an accident? I don't know. But in our world, we're saying that we are capable of that relationship. The other word that I wanted to put out was, we're talking about territory. What's our territory? How do you define an ecosystem? How do you define the relationships that define us, that shape us? So we decided that our territories were self-defining, because you didn't know what network of relationships was going to be important until you entered into those relationships. So the territory would define itself as we work through things. So those are the two interesting ideas that I thought I would share. Thank you.
So there's two concepts I was going to share as subsidiarity and self-organization, and they're related. In a sense, subsidiarity is a principle of a function should be performed at the lowest level that it can be adequately performed, and self-organization is the system doesn't run with somebody telling it what to do. that it runs from inside relationships of all the interconnected parts. And we picked as our metric, the only one we could get to in our chaotic discussion, of the sort of number of large systems that don't have anybody running them.
And one last final comment, and this goes back to the tension that we didn't resolve over the equality question between humans, species, and ecosystems, is I think we approach this perhaps a little bit the way the American colonists approached their revolution, which was in some degree driven by who they were throwing off, the king, King George, and arbitrary autocratic rule. And so they solved, perhaps oversolved, for the problem of concentration of power. And so we got a very sort of deliberately divided government that perhaps is at the root of some of the problems we have today. And so we, the problem I think that we might be oversolving for here is the problem of the climate and what we're doing to other species as we ravage the earth. And so our group, I think, was motivated to worry more about that problem of internalizing these externalities. But we don't know whether we really have thought through, will we then create other problems that, that we're not anticipating. And so we're hopeful that tomorrow in the conversations that ensue, that we'll be cognizant of that. Thanks.